You're listening to the segment, The Coaching Companion with Tiffany Joyner from the Primetime Power Show.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight, my segment is titled Getting Beyond the Surface in Our Conversation. So the first thing I want you to do is think about your everyday conversations. What are they like? Who are the people that you're normally in dialogue with? And what is the depth of those conversations? Because when we talk about going beyond the surface, we're talking about going beyond just the common chatter that you may have. We're digging deeper into who a person is. A traditional greeting of "how are you" would not be answered or settled upon with a "fine" if you're talking about going beyond the surface. Because those that want conversations beyond the surface, the initiator of those conversations, they desire more. And what that means is they are wanting to know more on the specifics of our life. They're not just settling for fine. This may include how you're doing emotionally, physically, with some degree of detail. They also may be requesting to know about how your relationships are and how you're actually navigating through those relationships in your life. Because most of the time, the people who are requesting to go beyond the surface in conversations with us, they desire to take a more active role in our lives. They're showing their investment in who we are and desiring a deeper commitment to the relationship. It's really great to have, these types of people in our lives because you know why? They provide substance, which is more of the meat, right? They provide this meat in the conversations and the interactions that we have with them, right? They're looking for more. And over time, because of the depth of care and commitment that they have, we may even find ourselves trusting these individuals in a way we wouldn't necessarily do with others. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to explore some of the benefit of having conversations that go beyond the surface and the impact that they have on our overall relationships with others. The first thing is we get to learn more about a person. When we think about going beyond the surface, we get to learn more about a person. When we have these conversations with people, we get to know who a person truly is beyond what we see initially, again, on the surface. We learn things that possibly the average person doesn't know. The second thing is we develop trust. When we disclose personal things or things, again, that are the meat or the substance, when we provide those things about ourselves to particular people and know that this person will keep our confidence, what happens? Naturally, we develop a trust in that person. And the third thing is friendship, because over time, by getting to know people beyond the surface, it puts us in a place where we can really develop friendships and hopefully camaraderie. And the fourth thing is vulnerability. And this can actually go both ways, but I'm looking at the benefit of it. It puts us in a place where it encourages us to reveal intimate parts of who we are. And this, of course, requires us to let down our guard and develop a level of comfort, right? And this, of course, comes over time. And then the fifth thing is we can depend on these people when we're going beyond the surface. We can often depend on them to be truthful with us, to be honest with us. Because of the conversations that are going beyond the surface, we can depend on these people to reveal the truth to us about situations or occurrences that we may go to them and confide in them with. They also know how to lovingly tell us things that, again, others might try to, but because, again, we've developed this trust in them, we have a vulnerability and we have a friendship, again, we can depend on them to tell us the truth, but in a loving form, a loving way, right? So again, just to review those four things, again, we get to learn more about the person, we get to develop trust, we get to walk in friendship with that person, and also vulnerability, and then we depend on them for the truth. So those are the five benefits of that, going beyond the surface. And when we come back from break, what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the challenges that may come from choosing not to have those conversations that are beyond the surface. So we're back. So what we're going to do now is we're going to look at some of the challenges that may come from choosing not to have those conversations that are beyond the surface. So there's two simple things that happen. The first thing is you never really get to know people, right? Because if you're having conversations that are very surface, very base conversations, you really don't get to know the core of who they are. And what happens is you walk through life, you have lots of people that are associates, or again, people that you just have pretty base conversations with, and you don't really they don't really get to know the real you, and you really don't get to know who they are either. And it's somewhat isolating. And then the second thing is that naturally happens is, of course, you have limited friendships with others. So again, why might someone choose not to have these conversations? Why do some people choose not to go beyond the surface? Well, there may be various reasons for this. The first thing is they may have been vulnerable in the past and have gotten hurt. And because of that, they are unable to trust. Hence, they don't have these more in-depth conversations with others. Because what happens? If you're going to have these in-depth conversations with others, it's going to involve you giving up pieces of who you are, personal things that, again, are beyond the surface. And you might not necessarily feel like you want to be in a position where you want to be vulnerable again, especially if you've gotten hurt in the past. So again, going back to they may have been vulnerable in the past. That was the first thing. And they've gotten hurt. And because of that, they aren't able to trust, right? And as I said, they've made a decision to navigate through life with an abundance of associates or majority of people that they just want to have small talk with or chit chat. And like I said, it isolates them, right? It puts them in a place where they're alone. They don't want to possibly be around other people. And they've made that conscious choice to live that way. That's what I was trying to get to. Although they may not always bask in that choice, it prevents them from being disappointment, right? From the disappointment that comes from what? Opening up with people and going beyond the surface. So again, although some people may not necessarily want that or make that choice for their lives in terms of not having these conversations, but because of that past hurt, right? Because of those things that have happened to them, they've made, again, that conscious choice to live that way, to make that choice not to go beyond the surface, because again, it may lead to disappointment and it's led to hurt in the past. Personally, I found it very difficult in my life to move beyond the surface in a lot of conversations. And what happens sometimes with me is, in my experience, is that people tend to store that information that I give them when I've made myself vulnerable, right? I've put myself in a position of vulnerability and then they use it later. And that's so hurtful, right? Disappointing, because again, we've let down our guard. We've become vulnerable before people. And then what happens? We see that by being vulnerable, by going beyond the surface, it comes back to haunt us, to bite us, as so they say. So with going beyond the surface, there is a risk, right? Just like with any relationship that we enter into, there's always a risk. And when you go beyond the surface with an individual, again, you're taking that risk. And it can be worthwhile, because ultimately, if you take that risk and it works out, you've gained so much. You've gained a friend, you've gained camaraderie, you've gained someone you can trust. But unfortunately, if it goes the other way, what happens is you've put yourself in a position to be hurt, and you've put yourself in a position to be disappointed. And, that's a path that some of us may have experienced, and it's not a pleasant one. It's a hard walk. And something that when we're navigating and trying to get through life, making these choices as to who you're going to open up to and who you're not going to, who you're going to have these relationships with beyond the surface, it really takes a keen sense of discernment, knowing who you can have these conversations with. Because if you make the wrong choice, again, it's something that can lead to lots of pain and disappointment and hurt. But again, on the flip side, by discerning in the right direction, you've opened up yourself to friendships, to camaraderie, to people you can trust, people that you can rely on. And so when I think about these relationships and going beyond the surface and these conversations, there's a scripture that talks about conversations, and we always want our conversations to be uplifting. We want them to be edifying to people. We want them ultimately to be in a place where what we speak, what we say to people brings glory to God. So let's look at Colossians 4:6. It says, "Let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that ye may know how ye ought to answer every man." So that's what I want to leave everyone with tonight. Just again, that sense of discernment and knowing who we should have these conversations with. Again, because in the long run, it can avoid a lot of pain and disappointment. But again, knowing on the other side, it can lead to a sense of, it can lead to friendships. It can lead to real strong, lasting relationships. So that's what I want to leave you with tonight, everyone. And Derek, just want to ask you, you in terms of having these conversations beyond the surface? Do you find it's easy for you to do that with individuals? Do you find, like, in your life, in your experiences, what has it looked like having conversations beyond the surface with people?
No, I don't think it's easy for me. A lot of people, unfortunately, in my life, they're just not, authentic enough. I've unfortunately been around a lot of people that are really selfish and about themselves, and it's more about them instead about just the whole. And it really turns me off. I'm going to be quite honest with you. And I don't like to participate in friendships or associate relationship, whatever you want to call them, when it's so one-sided. I don't have to get exactly 50%, but I do need enough where I feel like, okay, this is even enough exchange where I feel like we can have a friendship that is mutually beneficial. And I mean, just being, who we are as just a decent, pleasant person. I'm not saying it like trying to get anything from anybody, but it's hard nowadays. And I know I'm a natural introvert as well, so that's like another element to it. But, and that doesn't help either. And I get it. I know it's a little bit of me, but it's not much of me, because I do give people an opportunity to be able to have conversations with me, and I listen to what they want to talk about. And usually it transitions to their issues and problems and all that other stuff. And that's fine. I don't mind being the ear, but it's always typically like one-sided when it comes to that. I never felt like, in very few cases, I felt like I could reciprocate and talk in that same way. And a few times that I did, I think you mentioned a piece in your segment, is that it's stored by that other person, and then they use it against you at the worst times, to throw it back at you. Like, they have the dart and they're throwing it at us, we're the bullseye. So it's very challenging trying to interact with people, what I found, because, naturally I'm a nice person, I'm a natural giver, but I have noticed as I've gotten older that people don't really reciprocate in the same manner. A lot of people, unfortunately, and I'm talking about my personal interactions, it's really more like, okay, give me your time, give me your attention, listen to what I got to say, and almost do what I want you to do. And then I don't really think about doing the same thing on the other side. So the balance is really not there. So I find personally that I'm at my most comfortable and most peaceful state when I'm just riding solo. And that doesn't mean that I totally neglect people and, I walk by people and don't say hello or nothing. No, I'm not that kind of person. But I do understand that, most of the people I know, and, I'm not saying this is a good thing or not, that it's more people that I just know. I wouldn't really call them a friend, if you know what I mean. Because I take that word literally. I know a lot of people don't, but I do. And I think it's a substantial difference between the two.
Yes. And it's hard, like you said, because, I'm an introvert too. And I tend to sort of, go solo in a lot of places. And it's very hard for me too to trust. Because like I said in the segment, you let down your walls. And as soon as you do that, you become a target. And it's really hard to place yourself in that position where you're having these really in-depth conversations with people, because you just never know who you can really trust. And that whole discernment piece, sometimes we feel we're using it, or I feel like it's in action, or that I was able to discern I can trust, but then some fails me. I'm like, well, wait a minute. I thought I could trust that person.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a letdown. I mean, let's be honest about it. You think that it's one thing, but it was just perception the whole time. It wasn't reality. And when you come to the realization of that, it makes you feel like, you know what? Like, wow, really? And then if it happened, it's a recurring thing. You're like, here we go again. I thought this person was genuine. I thought they had the right intention. Initially our conversations were stimulating and it seemed like we had this mutual bond. And then all of a sudden time went on, and then I saw the real person for what they were, because they eventually got exposed. And it sucks, because it's like, I think if you're a good-hearted, decent person, you always have optimism about the other person. And you're saying, okay, they're nice, they're cool, they seem like someone that, I can get along with, and who knows, we can develop into a good friendship and have a good rapport, and maybe we can find out we got common interests and start doing stuff and, all kind of things like that. But then the reality comes, and it's not always favorable back to us. And it's like, okay, what do I do then? And then, in my case, personally, I just say, all right, well, that's my sign that I'm going to just say, hey, I'm going to see it for what it is and let it it be, but at the same time, I'm going to make sure I protect myself and guard myself so, I don't become a victim of something that I don't want to be a part of.
Right. Like you said, it's such a letdown.
And it shouldn't be like that. Let me be clear on that. It should not be like that. I think it should be just a natural evolving of a friendship, but it's hard now because there's so many dynamics. There's so many different characteristics of individuals, and you just don't know what a lot of people's intentions are anymore. And that's the sad part about, where we live in society today. It's challenging. I'm speaking for me personally. I mean, maybe other people, it's natural. And yeah, I mean, maybe for others out there, I mean, if you're out there listening, cool. If it clicks and it doesn't necessarily for me. And it's not that I feel any kind of way about the person. I hate them or anything like that because I don't hate anyone. But I do understand whether it's a fit or not. And I'm okay with retreating from that interaction and saying, hey, okay, that was just a season and it wasn't meant to be anything long term.
Yeah. It's hard though. But yeah, I understand completely. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Derek, for sharing. And I should say, I guess, for being vulnerable, right? Because you were on some level.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's a reality of life. And obviously, it's always my hope that, I will be able to find genuine people and it'll be some good experiences. But, it's a part of life. So, I've accepted those things and, we'll see. We'll see down the line. Maybe next year I can tell you about my new best friend out there, y'all. Thank you so much, Tiffany. Appreciate your segment. Thank you for listening to the segment, The Culture Companion, with Tiffany Joyner from the Primetime Power Show. If you would like to check out the live radio show broadcast, tune in every Thursday night, 7 p.m. live on Primetime Power Radio, which is available on the TuneIn, Radioline, Radiodeck, and Deezer apps. Just search for Primetime Power Radio. Once again, check out the Primetime Power Show Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern Time live. For more information, go to primetimepowershow.com to learn more. Thank you for listening. We appreciate your support.